Throne and Liberty is a brand new free-to-play MMORPG developed by NCSoft. Though it's not out yet, the West finally got access to the game through an open beta. As a huge MMO fan, I had to check this out, since it's actually a game I've been keeping an eye on and following for a long time now. In this video I'll cover the basics including combat, settings, questing, skills, gear, world events, and of course the question on everybody's mind: is it pay to win? Throne and Liberty is a very beautiful game, and most areas kept at 60 frames per second or better. Unsurprisingly, I did have issues in town, but look at all these players. There was one moment in one of the first open world zones where a giant whale flew overhead, and honestly, it was breathtaking. The world design was lush and full, the monster and character models looked fantastic, and the general setting of the game is really nice. Which is great, since if you're like me and you don't do quests in a sensible order, you'll be seeing the same areas again and again. Unlike most modern MMOs, Throne and Liberty took on a more traditional style through its tab target combat, linear questline, and generic gear progression. This was not always the case. The original beta tests in Korea revealed a very different game that seemed more mobile game oriented. Everything seemed to be automated, including the combat. Needless to say, the game was dead on arrival. NCSoft, however, surprisingly listened to the criticism and changed the entire core of the game. Combat is a little weird, which isn't really surprising due to last minute reworks. Though the game is aiming for a more traditional style, and it does feel like a basic tab target system, the way in which we use our abilities and control the camera is actually more action oriented, though you can swap to a true traditional tab targeting system at the press of a button. Also, unlike traditional systems, we utilize two weapons, something we're seeing more and more in modern MMOs such as New World. However, unlike New World, this system is a lot more fluid. All of your skills, regardless of which weapon you've set to be your main weapon, appear on your hotbar. My weapons of choice were Greatsword and Longbow, with Longbow being my main. The game does have an auto attack system. By pressing E, it will initiate auto attacks, and the game will take care of all your auto attacks for you, while you focus on moving your character and using skills. Using a Greatsword skill will actually temporarily swap me to a Greatsword and use that ability, before swapping back to Longbow to continue auto attacking. It's nice and smooth, but I don't really see the need for a second weapon setup. I will say that there are a lot of skills, and at first you're just pressing whatever hasn't been used yet due to feeling a little bit overwhelmed, especially as you get into enhancing your active and passive skills. Passive skills are weapon dependent, but just having a weapon equipped gives you access to their passive skills, so I wouldn't be surprised if certain builds didn't even use their secondary weapon for anything other than the passives that it comes with. The other strange thing for a more traditional MMO is the addition of a parry button. Pressing Q at the right time can actually parry these big telegraphed attacks. Doing it perfect timing will reflect some of the damage back to the attacker and unlock a second attack. In the Greatsword's case, it was a big AoE, which for a long time was my only AoE. My biggest regret for any open beta is not testing more weapons. I am a very stubborn MMO player, and I typically go for the same builds again and again, either bow or Greatsword. The combination of both felt great, and as I got to a higher level it started to feel more and more like there's a genuine synergy being formed, despite the range differences. Now, despite my love for a true action combat MMO, this is actually a really nice change, as games like New World drain my focus over long play sessions, making grinding a little bit more of a mentally exhausting task. But that's just for me personally, as, you know, I am getting a little bit old now. For the most part, questing is exactly as you'd expect. The main story is very linear, though I didn't pay attention to any of the story, as I'm not a story kind of MMO player. Those guys are all too busy playing Final Fantasy XIV. What's that? Just finish your 1000th story quest? What do you mean you're still only on the first expansion? I kid, I love Final Fantasy XIV, but it doesn't mean it's not true though. The exciting and subtle changes to quests is its refreshing take on side quests. No run around town talking to every NPC to get every quest, only to find Kyle didn't grab the 4th quest from the blacksmith, so now he won't get to do any of that quest chain, making him 2 levels lower than the rest of the party, so now we can't enter the dungeon. Great job, Kyle. No, Throne and Liberty has done away with that system for a much cleaner system. Mostly. At any point you can see all the quests that an area has, and being close enough to these quests activates it and tracks it in your little quest UI window. Moving out of the area removes the quest from your window, but all progress will be saved. The only negative is without knowing this or checking the area means you can quite often skip quests or do quests in a non-optimal order, creating a lot of back and forth, potentially even more than MMOs using typical NPC and journal systems. The other type of quests are a sort of bounty board system. You can go up to this bounty board, pick and choose which quest you want to grab, even refresh the board after picking one quest up to really optimize what rewards you're going for. These quests are your usual boring kill X enemies, gather X items, but they do stack together, and the rewards include active skill upgrade books, passive skill upgrade books, gear crafting tokens. I farmed these tokens to give myself a massive advantage, which I'll cover in the next section of this video. This linear story seemingly is the best way to level up. I did decide to stop playing around level 30, as progress isn't saved in this beta, and this character is going to be wiped before release. The max level is 50, so reaching 30 in about a day or two from just casually following the main story and doing a lot of back and forthing for these side quests, I think that's pretty decent. While I cannot talk about endgame gear, I can talk about my experience with getting gear upgrades while leveling. Most of the time was spent using green rarity gear, but I did find a really interesting system that allowed me to craft a blue tier weapon quite a bit earlier than I was probably meant to have one. This was through a system where you could sacrifice gear to fill out a sort of collection log, and completing a section rewarded you with a specific item. Looking through the list, I saw a blue longbow that required me to sacrifice one of each green craftable bow, and seemingly there was no level requirement. The bounty board quests previously mentioned are an easy way to obtain the tokens required to craft these weapons, but I'll be completely honest, I do not know where I got the rest of the materials. The game occasionally handed out these bags that you could open for whatever resource you wanted, and this is what I ended up doing to get my materials. However, this meant I didn't have any resources for armor and accessories, though I never died, except to this world boss. There certainly were quite a few close calls against these cool trial bosses, but for the most part, no deaths. I'm not sure if I missed quests that reward gear, or if there are drop chances and I just got unlucky, but crafting seemed to be the most surefire way to get upgrades. Around the world of Throne and Liberty are these special time-based events that you can view at any time with the in-game calendar top right. One of these events was a world boss, so I turned up on time only to have to wait several more minutes for the boss to actually spawn. It was interesting. There were mechanics where you had to either parry one of its attacks or get away from the player he was targeting so it didn't chain onto you, and later on the fight he began damaging every player that didn't get behind a pillar in time. I died a good few times trying to figure out the mechanics, but I got the hang of it in the end. We had an hour to kill this boss, and we barely made it. The boss was actually around level 40 I believe. Almost everybody that attended was drastically underleveled, causing most of our attacks to miss. I did not get any loot from this, but it was fun to experience it. Other world events include a competition to kill and drop off as many wolf tails as possible, displaying the number of wolf tails above the players' heads to really amplify the competitive nature. Later on was a similar event, but instead of wolf tails were petals. Only there was a side quest to hold a certain amount of these, which I accidentally failed by handing mine in before the stack reached a number. This second event actually had a follow-up mission to defend a group of NPCs, though if any of them dies, it resets. This was actually impossible. Not literally, but pretty much. Either they can't be healed, or we had no healers. We got super close on one of our attempts, but right near the end, one of them died and it reset, so I just walked away. Lastly, let's answer the age-old question. Is Throne and Liberty pay to win? In short, yes. Obviously this area is a bit of a grey area, where everybody has different opinions on what classes is pay to win. For me, if you can spend money in any way to increase your power at any stage of the game, I classify it as pay to win. With that in mind, let's discuss how Throne and Liberty is pay to win. As with every game that releases now, we have a battle pass, and a premium version of the battle pass that actually contains upgrade materials, giving premium battle pass holders access to higher power gear earlier than free members. On top of that, we also have a premium option for level up rewards that once again contain upgrade materials. There is an in-game marketplace to sell items for real life currency, such as weapons and armor. And finally, the game does have an early access package for those who want to spend some money and beat the rush to get a head start. All that being said, how much does it matter? If you're just out there to enjoy yourself, playing the game at your own pace and have no interest in player versus player, it won't affect you at all. I also imagine by endgame, once players are all max level and farming the endgame gear, it will start to matter less and less. But it does give NCSoft the option to do a second battle pass containing higher tier weapons, armour and upgrade materials when players start to reach max level. That is something we'll have to wait and see, though it is not remotely pay to win enough to put me off, and for 90% of you watching, it shouldn't be a problem for you either. To wrap this video up, I wanted to say that the changes from the early game footage we saw are fantastic. The game looks, feels and sounds amazing. The combat feels smooth and fluid, and I for one am really excited to see the full release at the end of September. Please remember to subscribe, like and comment down below, and I'll see you all again very, very soon. Bye bye.